Well, welcome back, lovely listeners. Thank you for joining me for part 2 of my interview with the wonderful Nikki-Lee Prismall, National Manager Business Support at KPMG Australia. I hope you enjoyed part 1, and I can tell you that part 2 is going to be equally, if not more enjoyable and enlightening for you as you get to hear about Nikki's experience working for KPMG Australia and how she had this opportunity to work on a very special project that has really taken her on a trajectory that she never could have envisioned, opening doors for her and giving her the opportunity to take on leadership opportunities and stretch and develop muscles that she hadn't anticipated. So just a reminder, lovely listeners, that we're picking up in part 2 of my interview with the lovely and wonderful Nikki. And we left off last week where Nikki had given us her experience navigating the career spider frame, the career climbing frame. And we finished off where Nikki had arrived at the point where she had commenced working for KPMG Australia. And we had a really interesting conversation around the transferable skills that Nikki brought to her role as an executive assistant coming into KPMG Australia. And we talked about how she commenced working with the Chief Operating Officer, the role that she continues to do today, 8 years later, and the relationship that she still continues to build and develop 8 years later. So if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to last week's episode, again, always great to go back and listen to it. But just so you know, we're going to dive straight into picking up right where we left off, where Nikki is going to start telling us more about her role at KPMG. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to part 2 of my interview with Nikki-Lee Prismall. Hello, I'm Liz Van Vliet, and welcome to the Assist with Impact podcast. Join me as I explore the competencies and capabilities that allow you to assist with impact. I'll be sharing practical tips, strategies, and insights that will help you move beyond what I call the order taker zone and be that little hinge that can swing big doors. If you're ready to be more proactive and have more impact in your role, then this is the place for you. Let's get started with the episode. Let's talk about the fact that was your transition into the EA role.
Yes.
And we're going back now, how many years?
Oh, well, I've been with KPMG for 8.5 years now.
There you go. So clearly you built a successful partnership with that COO. And then things have gone on from there.
Yeah.
And you have built a successful career at KPMG. And one of the things that I wanted to now move on to talking about was something that happened to you, a project that you got involved with in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So why don't you share with the listeners what transpired for KPMG and for you as an EA during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah. And what a time that was for everyone, Liz. Definitely a time of uncertainty. But yeah, absolutely. And doesn't it show you, Liz, as well, that this opportunity come about because it was in my personal life that this opportunity happened. So I think it also shows you that movements in your career don't just happen strictly within the professional environment. It depends on your volunteering and what you do in the community as well. That can also impact your path professionally. So I just wanted to remind everyone about that as well.
That's a great reminder. So tell us more about that connection.
Through my volunteer work in my personal life, I met people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So I think it's important when you're thinking about networking, it takes effort, it takes confidence, and it does mean you're putting yourself out there, but gee, it's worth it because you're making those connections. And you know what, Liz, those connections may not mean anything now, but it may be something later. So it's not just about us, it's actually about the people we connect with as well. So I just wanted to say that as well before going into the COVID journey.
No, that's great advice. Thanks, Nikki.
So yeah, COVID, Liz. So I was in the EA role, doing fine, doing my thing. I think we were all just going about in life. And yeah, COVID hit. So it was a very scary, uncertain time. And for KPMG, we were all told to pick up our stuff, set up at home and work virtually, okay? So, the office doors were shut. I brought my laptop home. Now, Liz, before that, you didn't work from home. It was unheard of. If you did, it was a very, very exceptional circumstance where you had a doctor's appointment, that was right next door to your home, and it logically didn't make sense to come into the office. So at KPMG, you didn't work from home before COVID. So all staff were sent home, and we successfully were able to run the business, from our homes. And KPMG started to think and go, well, hang on, we're now in a virtual world. So we invested in Teams, and suddenly those technological advancements were accelerated, and to get people to actually virtually communicate for that time. And so what happened, Liz, was our division at KPMG, the Enterprise division, leadership realised that the business support team, which were the PA admin network, were actually doing quite well working from home and supporting our senior leaders from home. In fact, productivity was high, and we were able to engage virtually within the hours that we were, had to work. They actually didn't really see, a drop in our productivity, so to speak, and we were actually going well. So our leadership thought, well, hang on, if our geographic borders are no longer, there, why aren't we looking at restructuring here to support virtually? So suddenly COVID changed the way we thought about PA support. It was suddenly opened up, and the prospects of what we could achieve were suddenly there, and it was like, wow, well, should we look into this? What is the PA role? What do we want them to achieve? And how can we do that virtually? So I was approached, Liz, to be part of the project team that they were creating of different stakeholders internally to bring my insights as an EA to that project team and my experience from that perspective.
Okay, excellent. Well, kudos to you for being asked and invited to be part of that project team. So tell us about what then transpired and what that project team delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, Liz, I thought I was there just to answer some PA questions. Like, what do you do is a common question we all get asked, don't we, as a PAEA? We go about our roles, and we do it so well that people don't see, well, what do we do? So at first, Liz, I thought I was there as a consultant, to be honest with you, and to provide those insights. And I was, but it ran deeper than that. What we actually ended up coming out of that project with, ultimately, was a restructure of the business support division within Enterprise.
Nikki, I'm going to stop you there because I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I wonder if maybe there is a possibility that you were invited to do exactly what you thought you were invited to do, which was to shed light and just fill in some boxes in terms of, okay, let's just get clear on what the PAs are actually doing. You then expanded the boundaries of what you could contribute to that project.
Yeah, it certainly ran deeper, Liz, than the PD.
Yeah.
We all know that a PA's PD is quite broad and deliberately so. And it's quite hard, to be honest with you, to see from a PD the level of skill that you actually need to do the PA role well.
That's it.
It goes beyond those dot points, doesn't it, Liz?
It does. And that's why that iceberg, that idea of the iceberg, the famous iceberg of what's above the line is what's in the PD, but there's all of this stuff below the line.
Yeah, exactly right.
Anyway, I interrupted you. So you then shone like a beacon in that project team and demonstrated your value in that project team.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So then we were able to determine, Liz, the picture. What is it at the end of the day that we actually want our PAs to provide? What's the service? Because we're not bound by the borders we thought we once were, okay? So what happened out of that project, Liz, was we redefined that. We kept the PD because the PD is right. That is exactly what we do. But we dug a bit deeper and we defined the tasks that a PA spends their time on. And who best to ask than the PA themselves what they spend their time on. So we actually surveyed the PAs, and Liz, we asked their opinion. We asked them about their partners. We asked them to build the picture with us and actually come on that journey of discovery. Where are we heading here, and what's the vision we want for Enterprise? So from that surveying and the collaboration with the PA network, and Liz, let me say that leaders are often hesitant to ask PAs what they want. They're a team that the leadership just let them be, let them do let them do what they do. We don't want to disrupt, or upset anyone. So I think it was very brave of the Enterprise division to ask the questions that we needed to ask, get a picture of the individuals, because Liz, we're not just resources, we are talent.
Yes.
And we have great talent within our PA community.
I love that, Nikki. Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
And how many PAs were in the Enterprise division?
Yeah, good question. So at that point in time, I would say around 30 odd within our division.
Yep.
And we needed to determine with our structure what were the tasks they spent their time on, because could anyone else do those tasks? Because could we give time back to the PA so that they can focus on value adding work, Liz, instead of just the, tapping away, cha-ching, done, sort of A to B jobs done, A to B job done. Why don't we turn our talent towards value-adding work, getting to know our clients to help our partners win the work for the company at the end of the day, Liz, instead of spending all our time on expenses or, those admin tasks that we could defer to another team. What could we turn our PA into? So that in the end, Liz, is how we restructured, and we created an admin team within the PA pool who took on all of those administrative tasks that the PA didn't have to spend their time on.
Okay, right. And so then what happened next?
Yeah, so we were able to give the PA back time, which meant that we were able to look at our ratios, our partner to PA ratio, and we were able to look at who they were providing support to. Because, Liz, it's a PA is someone everyone goes to, isn't it? You are the information booth, and you provide the guidance and education, and you spend time with so many people. It's important to remember that there are other teams within the firm who actually, do certain tasks. So we educated. And we said, look, the PA is there obviously to help you, but we're going to refer you to other teams who actually can take it beyond that point, and book that travel for you, for example. So we actually defined the PAs to be primarily partner focused instead of team focused, Liz.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in a team and there's just the one PA. So we actually redefined what they were spending their time on, and we restructured according to that new model.
And if I understand correctly, well, actually, I'll let you explain to the listeners, how did this affect your role?
Yeah, good question, Liz. So following that project and the restructure, the benefits of actually my knowledge, of getting to that point, was really, really good. It obviously put me in a unique position. So at that point in time, I was actually asked to lead and create and foster the admin team within the PA network that we had just created, because it was new, Liz. It needed guidance, it needed coaching, it needed someone being a leader to take it where we needed it to get to in order for our structure to actually work. So at first, Liz, I was asked to be the leader of that team, and that was about 8 people, Liz. And so I was actually a PDM to those people. We created what our services are and would be. We created comms. So it was a real opportunity for me, Liz, to be a leader of a small team. And then obviously it evolved from there.
And how has it evolved?
So how it's evolved, Liz, is I got that team on its feet, got it ticking over, and got it in a position where everyone knew what they were doing. We had a vision and they were working towards that on a BAU basis. And then I was approached to actually look after the entire PA division nationally. And that's the role that I currently play now, which is the National Manager of Business Support. So I now look after all of our PA network, very closely working within that with our team coordinators, who we appointed as the PDMs for the PAs instead of the partners.
So PDM stands for, just for the listeners, what does PDM stand for?
Performance Development Managers, Liz.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me, what do the performance development managers do?
Yeah, good question. So before the model, Liz, a PA would report to their partner. Okay. So their partner would do their goal setting. They would sit with them at performance year-end time, and talk about the year just gone. The problem with that, Liz, is it works in some cases, But we also found that a partner didn't quite understand the PA role. Even though they work very closely together, it doesn't mean that they understand what they do on a daily basis and the skill that's required to do that role. Not only that, Liz, but that partner didn't know what the next PA was doing and whether they were performing any better than their PA. So it was a very limited, structure where the PA may not have been getting the full benefit of what a performance manager could actually do for them. And so we recognise that, and we put in place team coordinators who come from within when we created the model. And they were like the senior EAs or PAs that have been there for a while. And we gave them training on performance management. And they understand what the PA does on a daily basis. And you know what? They could even help with career advice. And a partner wouldn't have any idea. I'll tell you now, they would be quite lost. And helping a PA with coaching and mentoring, it just isn't common.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds fantastic. So where are we at now? We're on the other side of the pandemic. The challenges we had challenges, during the pandemic in terms of working remotely. The challenges now that we're coming out, we're out the other side of the pandemic are different challenges. One of the challenges that I hear from assistants is getting staff back into the office. Is that something that you are hearing and helping and seeing the assistants, the PAs taking a leadership role in getting staff back into the office?
Yeah, great question. And for sure, Liz, obviously it changed the face of how KPMG worked. I mean, we actually created a flexible working policy, and our people and culture division actually had to create, new policies and procedures around the way that we now worked. And what we've found at KPMG is that the regional offices, like I'm from Hobart, and we've never had a problem with staff coming back to the office. We've got a typically younger demographic who are very sociable and love the office atmosphere. So I think the coming back into the office part is probably more felt in the metro regions, and it is something that we've had ourselves. And in regards to the PA role in that, Liz, very important, because you know what? The partners are suddenly needing their PA to not just do their BAU, but also play a champion role in the culture of the office, and actually stepping beyond the one-on-one partner level to actually representing what the office means, collaboration, helping drive, the morning teas, the afternoon teas, so yes, the PA, I believe, has played a major role in that return to office scenario.
That's a really great point, Nikki, and I think that's a really great reminder for assistants who are in the process of thinking about their performance review, because we are coming up to that time, thinking about, well, what are some of the things that, what are some of what is a value, a way that I have added value in my role? Well, you've just identified one of the things that an assistant could have done in their own organisation, in their own team, is taking on that role of a champion in their team, in their organisation. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that is top of mind for me, because I was just focused on this yesterday in a masterclass that I ran on combining strategic, big picture thinking with tactical execution. And it was one of the questions that I asked the assistants in the call was, what gets in the way of you being able to focus on strategic thinking, on big picture thinking? And the responses that came in were, a lot of them were around, being very focused on being very reactive, focused on responding to urgent requests, dealing with, multiple priorities, conflicting priorities, basically focusing on what's going on right now and being, head down rather than being able to have your gaze lifted and focused on the strategic. So do you mind if we just finish this interview with you sharing your thoughts on how an assistant can be more strategic? In your experience as an EA, how have you been able to find that balance?
It's a great question, and it's one that is often asked because we're so consumed, aren't we, Liz, with the multiple Tetrises
yes.
that are coming down, and we're so accustomed to quickly getting all of that done, and quickly doing our BAU as efficient as we can. Okay, so efficiency is something that's at the forefront of our mind. Must be efficient, and we do. One of the tips that I would give, Liz, in that regard is, remember, it's not just about you, and it's not just about your, hourly tasks. You need to be strategic in the way that you think. So you first need to understand, Liz, what that means. Okay, so you need to get that definition set before you can determine the steps to take in order to be able to give yourself that ability. Okay, so you need to identify what's your BAU, what are those time-consuming, tasks, and how you can best manage them in order to give you that time to look up and look ahead and look at long-term priorities. Okay, so one of my tips would be, Liz, in my experience, is remember, you're not alone. So I think we often forget about the other support systems around us. I mean, I know that at KPMG, we have other resource teams, and you do have the ability to delegate. For example, printing, you can delegate printing tasks. And I know it seems little, but those little tasks that you might be able to delegate to the local receptionist or engage in other teams to assist you, they will add up. They will add up over time to time, okay? The other thing is looking at your week, your month ahead, and prioritizing so that you end up finding the time in order to turn your mind to these strategic things. You need to understand what is the vision of your partner. Where are they wanting to get to, in a month's time, or whatever the milestone may be, Liz. You need to understand what they're trying to achieve, because otherwise you're rowing in two different directions. So I think it's important to have those foundations of knowledge of your BAU, how to get that under wraps, and who you can seek to for help with some of it, and structure your time so that in the end you're rowing in the same direction. There'll always be stuff, Liz. We're busy people, and we're capable, which is why we're thrown so many different things from different angles. So you need to learn boundaries. You need to understand priorities, deadlines. What's urgent to you, Liz, may not be actually urgent, to me. So you really need to dig deeper, not just take that task and do it, because you end up being busy, and your time's gone. 7.5 hours in a day just flies. So you really do need to dig deeper, find out the strategic vision so that you're rowing in the same direction, find out the tasks that you're spending time on, what other options do you have for those tasks, and you know what, if they are stuck with you, fine. Try and find in your day to actually structure it so that in the end, you're actually building the bigger picture towards that strategic goal, if that makes sense, Liz.
No, that does. It really does. I love that, Nikki. And it really ties into everything that I shared with them yesterday, which, you know, is all aligned with the leader insights that I talk about, which you've really touched on there, that really understanding the key priorities, really the organizational insights, understanding what your organization is, you know, where's the boat heading. It's one thing to, you know, it's really understanding, having insight and understanding, but it's also about that being intentional, which I also loved that you touched on. And, you know, the other analogy that I always love is that there's, you know, we're all juggling balls, but there's glass balls and there's plastic balls. And it's knowing which ones are which. And that is part, you know, one of the things that gets in the way for people when you're in that sense of overwhelm is that you think they're all glass balls. And they're not. Some of them are plastic. They'll bounce. You've got to be able to ask the right question of the right people to be able to work out which ones are the glass balls. Can't you drop? Because if you go around thinking they're all glass balls, all you're going to end up done, or you're just going to end up burnt out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, Liz, education is a big one in what you're saying. Educate yourself on not only your partner's strategic direction, but also about the business climate that we're in. It's, you know, it's not just about you and your pay rise, you know, and how, you know, it's about how the business is performing. Educate yourself on that. You know, get familiar with what the concerns are right now, you know, because that will also help not only build your brand, you know, and reputation, but also help you identify, Liz, those glass balls, you know, and plastic balls, and okay, so this is the area we're heading and this is why. Yeah.
Oh, Nikki, honestly, I said at the outset that there was going to be so many mic drop moments. You're a legend.
Oh, thank you so much. Liz. Thank you. I mean, we could talk all day, couldn't we?
We could. And I feel like someone's going to burst in the door any minute now at KPMG and say, will that woman stop taking up so much of your time, Nikki?
Not at all.
Nikki, thank you so much. The listeners, I'm sure, will be saying, Liz, we could listen to Nikki all day. Why do you have to stop? But we have to bring this interview to a close. So, Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights and your story. And if listeners would, which I know they would, love to connect with you, where is the best place for them to reach out to you?
Sure, LinkedIn, Liz. LinkedIn. Yeah, and we'll make sure that we tag my profile for you. Feel free to send me a message.
I will put the link in the description, the show notes for the episode. And once again, I just want to thank you so much. And I use the word serendipity a lot. Listeners of the podcast know I love that word. I just love the way it sounds, but it's serendipity that we connected on LinkedIn. I just feel very serendipitous that I've had the pleasure of spending time with you and hearing your story and getting to share you with my listeners. So thanks.
Thank you, Liz. So thank you. Pleasure's all mine. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see the show notes, head over to my website, It would be great if you haven't already done so. If you enjoyed the show, if you could kindly go to iTunes and leave a review. It helps other people find the show. Thanks for listening and have a great week.